All right, welcome back. Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Fantastic Fridays, and we're here with you every Friday, and all the Friday them win on your Friday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. All right, so from you hear that song, you know what time it is. It is time for Talk the Ting with Kim. And you know that in this discussion segment, I love educating you guys. And not only that, I love learning from you guys as well. So feel free to share your feedback. Feel free to submit questions, anything that you want to hear our opinion on or feedback on. We can even research it for you. And especially because we do have someone that specializes in this area as well as a part of his daily role, I guess, in his career, right? So it's the perfect time. I tell you, guys, we like to Google everything, but you see, when you get opportunities where you can speak to experts, it's the best time to get your questions answered, right? Because Google going to give you like a one size fit all type of thing. We're not bashing it, but it's like a one size fit all. But then when you can speak to someone who has the hands-on experience, the day-to-day experiences, you get a bit more information that Google not going to give you, right? And that's just the reality of it. So use the opportunities wisely. That's my tip for today. But we're not going to focus on that because I know that you see a handsome face beside me in studio, and I know in Radio Land out there on feel an extra presence on air. I can't tell where coming from yet, but he's here in the studio with us today. So I'm going to give him a chance to, I mentioned his name earlier, but I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself. So good evening, and can you just say your name and introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yes, good evening. I am Dr. Brian Kazaara. It's really my pleasure to be here. I'm a graduate of the University of the West Indies, and I'm a psychiatrist at Bellevue Hospital. I'm very passionate about mental health, so it's always my privilege to be in a setting like this and be able to talk and spread awareness about it and have these very important discussions. And I really have to be thankful to Kimmie. This is actually the second time I've been invited to talk here. So it's great. I'm really happy to be here, guys, and I hope we can have a very stimulating discussion.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to the information, because I can tell you, guys, the topic that we are discussing for today, right, is about stress management. So it is the importance of stress management and how to cope. So I think this one was one that I was doing some reading recently, and I saw some feedback on stress, and it just really got me thinking about and just seeing what's happening in Jamaica on a regular basis, showing that we have a very stressful environment. There's also stressors around us. And when I say stressors, I'm not talking about people alone. So we have the stressful people, but we have just life or scenarios or home or community, all of these things. The heat as well, right? So what I want to get into is, why is stress management important? Because you said, he's a psychiatrist, so make sure we get the experts in, guys, and you are very passionate about mental health, and this is linked to it. So why is stress management important?
Okay. All right. So, again, really commend you guys for touching on such an important topic and widely relatable, because all of us have an experience with stress, and all of us probably know persons who also have to deal with and sometimes struggle with stress. So let's first go into, what do we mean by stress?
Yeah.
So, stress is a feeling of emotional strain and pressure, and it's our body's way of reacting to certain alarming or threatening issues or challenges. Not to get too deep into the science, but we know that when we are faced with very challenging circumstances, very threatening or sometimes even life-threatening situations, our body reacts in very distinct ways. We actually are more inclined to release certain hormones, such as cortisol, which a lot of people know as the stress hormone, and also adrenaline. And that has a lot of genuine physiological effects. Your heart beats faster, you start breathing faster. So this is certainly something that we experience both in terms of our body and also hugely in terms of our mind, and that's one of the areas we're definitely about to go into.
Okay, I love that. So I actually love that you went into what stress is first, because I don't think any of us have ever really looked up the definition. We just grew up on here saying certain things are stress, or we just hear probably our parents saying that, I'm just stressed, and we just relate it to, okay, when you feel overwhelmed and all that, but we've never really looked into a definition. So I love that you actually went into that. So now that we understand what stress is, why is stress management important?
All right. So just one last thing I want to mention when we think about stress. So there are really two types of stress. So we have what we call acute stress. That's short-lived stress.
Acute stress?
Acute stress.
As in it look good? As in it look good? Cause I should know.
So it's like a fun one. But
That one that sound like it's something we're happy with.
Yeah, man, the short one.
Okay.
Yeah, man. So in medicine, oftentimes you'll say acute to mean just short. Short duration doesn't last long.
Right.
And this is the one that is most widely relatable. You know, it's before you have a major exam.
Okay.
Maybe the day before your wedding. You know, and you will still have that kind of biological response, but after the event, it generally will dissipate.
Okay.
Now, the one that's a bit more concerning and really will be the focus of our discussion today is chronic stress.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, that sounds heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. So that one is the one that actually lasts quite some time. It's long-lasting stress. So it persists for a long period. It can be several weeks to months and even years for some people. And it's recurrent in that it keeps coming back.
Yeah.
So even as certain circumstances in your life change, it's still kind of lingering around. That's the one that can be quite deadly and have a lot of really significant impacts on your health.
All right, so you'd say, since you said the acute stress, so just to clarify, acute, one word, ACUTE, right? Because I don't want anybody going around and saying, no, we know about one cute stress, you know.
Girls say, quick, how my stress cute?
We don't want that. So we're just ensuring that you know the term acute, ACUTE, stress, right? So you're saying that one is very common, and would you say that one is not so concerning? That's just the norm? Would you say that?
I think that's basically everyday stress. Like you have an exam today, it's not a regular trending issue that you will face. You know, you have to prepare a presentation tomorrow. You're going to stand in front of the persons there. You feel that little stressful feeling. Once the time has passed, it's gone. It's short-lived.
Yeah.
So that one is not so concerning.
So the great thing about our body is that it has a way of balancing things.
Yeah.
So the body realizes that, okay, this is a moment of when you need to perform or you need to be very alert. So that's why we have that acute stress reaction. And then once the event is out of the way, or like in more dire situations, survival.
Yeah.
Like if someone's chasing you down, you want to be alert and, fully engaged. But now once that event has gone away with acute stress, you go back to your baseline. And so your body can function fine.
Yeah. Okay, so the alternative, or the second one that you mentioned now, was chronic stress. So this one is more long-term, more severe. Can you tell us about, some instances? Because we hear severe, we hear long-term. Is there any, probably in your experience? I know we can't go into too much confidentiality, but can you give us like an example of chronic stress?
Right, so chronic stress now is the one that's particularly problematic because in this one your body doesn't get the time to recover.
Right, it's ongoing.
Exactly.
Keeps hitting you.
Precisely, and as I said, it's recurrent. So even when you may get a little relief and your body's trying to come back, it just hits you again with another problem. So in regards to some of the common causes of chronic stress in our society, well, for one, abuse.
Yeah.
And I'm going to divide that into childhood abuse and adult abuse, because childhood abuse is quite prevalent in our society, and different types, emotional, physical, even sexual. And when someone is experiencing this frequently, as you can imagine,
it's going to be,
exactly, it's going to be an incredibly stressful process to have to deal with. In addition to that, financial difficulties. All of us have seen the impact of inflation, and that's something that's quite widespread and felt across Jamaica, and it affects a lot of people. I'm really happy you mentioned climate change. I think that was really a great point to mention because I think it's overlooked. But the reality is that when temperatures are so high, it affects us being able to do our jobs effectively. And honestly, even socializing, you're not inclined.
You're not as friendly as you might.
You're just miserable.
So I think of like going to some of these daytime parties now. It's kind of a sacrifice in a way, So another major one in terms of chronic stress that's really starting to show up is isolation. Increasingly, a lot of persons feel isolated, and in the US, they even talk about the loneliness pandemic.
From pandemic time as well. There we go. Amplify everything, and then any little probably taste you get a bit now, you probably have like flashbacks of pandemic time.
Right. Absolutely. Wow. You made a very good point as well earlier. I was listening. So stress does contribute to interpersonal violence,
Mhm.
right? And that's a big thing in Jamaica. I'm always mentioning this,
Yeah.
that interpersonal violence is the most common form of violence in
Right.
Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
More common than
Yeah,
gun violence,
that's it.
guys.
Of
That's
course.
true. That's true.
And we know that when you're the victim of interpersonal violence, as you can imagine, that also is an incredibly stressful experience. Let's also talk about relationship stress, right? I think sometimes we trivialize it,
Mhm.
but when you're dealing with marital conflict or even conflict with
Yeah.
your long-term
Yeah.
partner, that's another huge cause of stress.
I
So
was
these,
gonna ask you about that when you mention chronic illness, because if you're in an ongoing situation, like a long-term relationship,
Exactly.
Yeah.
and they say it can be stressful.
Mhm.
What if it is stressful? That also falls on the umbrella.
absolutely. So when you ask me clinically what I see
Mhm.
in terms of common stressors, these are some of them. Just the last thing I'll mention, we talked about financial difficulties, but also difficulties in the workplace. Right.
Yes, if you have a stressful work environment, every day
Precisely.
you're going back to that place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think you really kind of clinched the main characteristic that all of these situations share, which
Yeah.
is you keep coming back into an environment
Mhm.
that continues to put you in that stressful
Wow.
space of mind.
So you're
But
saying
there's
just leave the job? That's what you're saying?
No, I mean,
I'm joking.
no, but there's gotta be methods for you to try and find
Yeah.
a safer place. That's why they say a healthy work environment, not just for fun and games, people, but
Yes, absolutely.
if you can't perform in the environment and it becomes stressful, you hear the man says stress can be deadly. So don't play around with it.
You know, I was actually having a talk with the Norman Manley Law School on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And one of the things I mentioned is when it comes to stress management and focusing on mental health issues at the workplace, it's beneficial to both the employee and the employer.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because your productivity as an employee is reduced significantly when your mental health is compromised with
Yeah.
things like stress and depression. And for instance, we know that persons who suffer from chronic stress are more likely to take more sick days,
Yeah.
take longer to recover from illness.
Mhm.
And so you're missing that. And then also naturally that affects your ability to earn
Yeah.
as an employee. So it goes both ways. There's a lot of reason to try and improve the work environment for both employers and employees.
I love that you mentioned that because, man, I think
I tell you.
that explained a lot of things for me when I was younger.
No, but we see it now, and then that brings you down into a spiral where you end up you can't go to work because it's stressful, and you're missing a day, so you're not getting enough pay.
Yeah.
Not having enough money going to
So you're stressed all over again,
Wow.
and you can't fix the stressors, right?
Oh, they got you them.
And Carty Shakespeare said, regular exercise helps me to reduce stress. I love that you touched on that because it's something we're going to discuss later, right? But I want to know, so we've identified stress and the different types and some of the situations that I feel like we all can relate to,
Yeah.
right? But what are we at risk of if it's not managed?
Absolutely. All right.
Mm.
So I'm really happy we're having that discussion because I think all Jamaicans need to hear this.
Yeah.
So number one killer of Jamaicans. I'd love someone. I don't know if anyone can take a guess. Any of our viewers. I don't know if we can give them 10 seconds. I don't know if anyone will try.
What's the number one killer of
Someone
Jamaicans?
give it a try.
Anybody on the WhatsApp line, on the IG page, 876-792-3530.
What's the number one? She said, all right, Carty says high blood pressure.
You're close, and as a matter of fact, it's related.
It's related, Carty. It's
Related.
close.
Good guess. Good guess.
Uh-huh.
What is
Carty.
the high blood pressure? What is it about? Hypertension?
So I assume that's what she means.
And she says diabetes.
Oh,
Okay.
well, now that's number two. So you're not doing too badly at all,
Okay.
Carty.
So she's going closer.
Oh yeah, man. So the number one
You're heating
cause,
up, Christ.
according to the latest statistics, at least, is stroke.
Stroke.
Right, which by the way,
yes.
high blood pressure does contribute
Cause,
to.
right, that's what I'm saying.
So that's why
what I think
Carty-
might lead to it as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So Carty isn't far off. But stroke is number one.
Mhm.
Diabetes is actually number two.
Yeah.
Heart disease is number three. And interpersonal violence is number four. So these are the
Wow.
top four killers.
Mm.
And all of these things are increased with chronic stress.
Wow.
Mhm.
So your risk for all of these are increased. So just
Wow.
that's a very, to me, clear way of demonstrating how it affects our population. That the top four killers of Jamaicans are all impacted and increased by stress.
And so many Jamaicans are already being impacted by stress.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
But listen, I don't want to go too much into how we fix it just yet, even though I'm tempted to.
We want get out of the deep valley that way.
Right, but
Yeah.
I want a bit more detail.
Uh-huh.
I want to know, how does stress impact our physical health,
Mhm.
right? Our mental well-being and our overall productivity. So let's start with physical health. 'Cause I think most persons, we don't understand just how it affects. I think we just relate stress to just be a mental thing only, but it does affect our body. So can we just go into that one? How does stress affect us or physical health?
Sure, not a problem. So chronic stress predisposes you to a lot of what we call chronic conditions.
Mhm.
So that's certainly where we can talk about heart disease, and hypertension is included in that,
Mm-hmm.
which is a major killer of Jamaicans.
Yeah.
Also, we know that chronic stress tends to reduce how efficient your immune system is. So in other words, you're more likely to get sick.
sick.
That explains a lot. This
Yeah.
week was a rough one,
Not as
and
stressful
I'm
she's under the weather.
currently under the weather.
And
Yes.
the thing is like, we might not see them connected, but once you explain it, it's pretty clear that
Yeah.
these are the side effects of what we are going through. A stressful week, what happened the following week? People them sick out, can't come to work, pop down, all these things.
Precisely. I'm sure you would have heard from your parents at one stage that, when you get sick, you have to rest.
Yeah.
And some scientists will tell you this is your body's
Signal.
way of telling you that
Right.
rest time,
Yeah.
even if you don't want to,
Mhm.
right? So, another thing is we know chronic stress is also linked with obesity,
Mhm.
which is an increasing issue in
Right.
Jamaica. It's on the rise. So these are, and the list goes on. It's linked with kidney disease. There's a long list.
Yeah.
We can't go through all of them tonight. But
Yeah.
in terms of your physical health, it's a major issue. And lastly, I'll mention that studies show that people who suffer from chronic stress are more likely to have very unhealthy habits
Mhm.
that aren't good for your general health, such as they usually select junk food
Right.
as their food of choice.
Mhm.
They are less likely to exercise.
Mhm.
And as Karti mentioned, exercise ironically, it's a
Yeah.
great form of stress management.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because it brings a little stress, a little bit, but yeah,
But a good stress.
yeah.
And as well, what we see with chronic stress is that it also increases your chances of abusing alcohol and smoking.
Just gonna add that, and I was like, yeah, alcohol, so like it's gonna come in there because they're gonna say, oh, well, if you drink for coke,
Precisely.
and it's not a healthy habit to have at all.
Exactly. And then you're more likely to go overboard with it.
Yeah.
And abuse substances. So
Yeah.
Okay, so would you say that that's one of the main, or that could be a main contributor, that means stress, to what we see in our society, with also men who on the roadsides with the weed in there, our regular use of that. 'Cause we're not saying it's a bad thing, but we just have persons who sometimes all day, every day are, as you wake up and pass and go work, they're there. Would you say probably stress is linked to that abuse of that substance?
Yeah, absolutely. From my interview with many of my patients, when asked, why is it that you feel the need or the compulsion to use this substance so frequently, the response we oftentimes get is because it helps with managing their stress.
Right.
That's literally the language they use.
Yeah.
That's the most common word they use, helps with stress. So absolutely, it does definitely contribute to that trend that we see.
Well, do you think that there's any major changes that we can make on an individual level and a government level that could assist with the stress levels of Jamaicans? Is there any suggestions that you probably have that we need to start looking into? I know that's a big question, but it just came to mind.
I know we just deal with taxi JPS. One of the biggest contributors right now. Yeah.
So that's one.
That is one. That is
That is
one. I'll
one.
give you that.
But on an individual level, so that's something that we have in our control, and then probably something that the country, the government needs to say, okay, probably we need to consider this. What do you think?
Sure, not a problem. All right. So the first thing I'm going to say is prioritize relaxation.
Yeah.
I think right now we live in a culture where we really seem to promote this idea of working towards your goals.
Work till you drop down.
Exactly. Just continue working. You're this much closer to that
Yeah.
car. You're this much closer to that house. And it's good that we're trying to promote being productive. But I think we also need to balance that in our minds and in our homes with saying, okay, this is relaxation time.
Yeah.
I know people who will schedule, okay, this is when I'm going to work. This is what I'm going to do. I don't oftentimes see people scheduling when they're going to relax.
Yeah.
So one of the easy way we can start is just prioritizing relaxation. So the beautiful thing is sometimes when people ask me about stress management, I tell them, well, You're the expert. You know. A lot of times the patient knows, or the individual knows exactly what works best to help them relieve their stress. They're just not actively doing it. They're not prioritizing it. So you have to find a way to prioritize it as an individual. So that's why I tell a lot of my patients to put it in your calendar. Make it an event. Tell your spouse or your friends or your parents that Saturday at 8 p.m. I can't do the house chores. I can't be expected to do this. I'm just focusing
on... Hold on, wait, does it tell your parents that? That's what you said?
My disclaimer, right? My disclaimer.
He's gonna make us stress.
A new level of stress.
No, he's gonna make us stress-free, but also home-free. But I get you though.
My disclaimer is that it's just for that isolated period that you say that. For the rest of the time for the week, please. Yeah. Play your part in the
I like when you drop in the please, because you're talking to your parents, right? But before you even go to the government part, because you mentioned we know what works for us, right? What if what works for you is not a healthy
excellent question.
Medium?
That's a very excellent question. So I find the safest bet, right, is to spend time with family and friends. Now, following what you're saying, the only caveat is that sometimes the friends might not be the most positive influence. Right? So, in an instance like that, I would say if you come to the conclusion that what you're attracted to or what helps you relieve stress is unhealthy, at that stage in time, then you can probably seek out help. Yeah. It doesn't even have to be professional at first. You can reach out to your friend group, church group, tell them that you want to engage in something. Because I find a lot of times I'm telling my patients to exercise more, but I know that they're more likely to do it once they do it with someone else.
I like that. All right, so we're going to go back to part 2, and that will be the last question for our interview, because we know you're a very busy man. And we know you have a lot of work on your hands, because, guys, this is an area not only for stress, but I think Jamaica, we need to encourage psychiatry a bit more. We believe this whole thing of, first of all, black people don't need therapy, and then that's just a general belief, apparently. And then especially as Jamaicans, we believe that we're so resilient and we're grown to be tough. We're actually very strong people, we are. But I think being so strong is, yes, a plus for us, but also it has also been our weakness because we don't know when to ask for help, right? So I want to know, as I said earlier, the government aspect. What's something that you think the government can do to assist with the stress management of Jamaicans?
You guys give me so much raw material to just have to comment on. So let me just comment on your last point, Kimmie, because that's one that's close to my heart. So in regards to this misconception people have that black people shouldn't go for therapy or seek mental health care when needed. Firstly, I would say we are a resilient people, absolutely. So that resilience allows us to survive. Yeah. But what I encourage all persons to do is not only survive but thrive. Yeah. Right. So not only get by but be optimal. Be your optimal self. And so that's where sometimes intervention can help. So I'm not denying it. I know there's so many people out there battling with so much on their plate, and that is a form of strength. But now let's now take it to the next level and live our optimal and best life, and that can help when we focus on our mental health.
I love that.
And here's the trick now. I got a counselor, but I need a therapist. But what are their therapists now? Let me go on this TikTok page and hear this person who has no experience.
Let's Google it.
No experience. Tell me what I should do with my life and my relationship and how I should. And we're ready to listen to anybody that we find on social media with a couple followers. And people, you need to go to those who are trained.
In this.
Because trust me, when them people feel up, them themselves need little counseling as well. This I will tell you what they feel on their mind and lead you astray. And do methods that are not helpful.
Excellent point, by the way. So not only are a lot of the influencers or person on social media not licensed,
yes,
but they also don't have a personal responsibility to you because they're not licensed.
Right.
Yes,
right. And then also, Kimmie made this point, because they're really just trying to appeal to the broadest audience. Right. They can't really give you any specific catered.
They're not specialized in your field.
Yeah.
And they're literally not in front of you.
Yeah.
They don't know you.
Yeah.
They're just speaking to the biggest crowd.
Yeah, that's not speak. So
I
people,
like that.
Get a little one-on-one counseling if necessary.
Yeah, man, it's something we need to look into. And as I said, we don't have to go definitely to a psychiatrist, or go professional level first. You can find someone that either you look up to, you think that they might have some knowledge, or you just see how they are. Can be church, can be somebody at the workplace that you look up. Once again, look for the positive influences around you, and you can seek help from there, starting with that, right? But we were saying earlier on the government level, is there something you think that the government could do? Because we like to blame government for other things, apparently. So is there any recommendation you would say based on what you've experienced on a day-to-day?
There are quite a lot of things that I think could be done on a government or societal level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say that this is the only one, but I'm going to mention it because it's not something talked about frequently, but I do think it's something that we can look into for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What about modifying working hours?
Right.
Making them more flexible.
Right.
And I say that because some societies have done this,
Yes.
and it's been shown to actually improve
productivity.
Exact. Thank you for finishing my sentence. So that's the ironic thing. It actually reduces stress while improving productivity. Everyone wins. So I think I think we need to start having that discussion. That's why I'm mentioning that one. There are other interventions, but since I'm online and we're talking to an audience, if just in case, Nigel Clark is listening, maybe that's a discussion that we can start having more frequently.
I love it. Well, we have to say that's all the time we have with Dr. Brian Kazaara. It's been a wealth of information so far, guys. And if it is that you missed any part of it, you're just joining, just know that all of these episodes are recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. Before you go, do you have any final advice for our listeners regarding stress management?
All right, so there's so many things I could say, but I think you guys really did a good job when you started talking about it. We have made stress a normal aspect of our society and our culture. Like, it's just normal to be stressed, and it's nothing to address.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I want to encourage people is to take a minute and stop and actually say to yourself, no, I don't have to feel stressed all the time.
Right.
That's why I'm happy we made that distinction. Stress is going to come.
Yeah.
And when in an acute setting, like before a big talk or a big exam, that's fine. But if you realize that you're experiencing stress every single day, start to do something about it. You can start with self-care.
Right.
And then if that's not effective, you can go the next step and talk to someone about it. Family, friends, does not have to be a professional first. Failing that, if it's still persisting, please seek professional help.
All right, well, there we have it. Thank you so much. It was our pleasure having this interview. And after the break, we're going to talk about how to cope with stress. So we'll be right back.